An entitled Karen who I don't know demands I babysit her kid. So Karen moved into the apartment next to mine a couple of weeks ago. Karen has struck up short, polite conversations with me just 2 times in that period, with the second being yesterday, the day before this whole fiasco unfolded. This morning at about 9 a.m., while I was having breakfast, someone started aggressively banging on my front door. When I answered, Karen was standing there with her daughter, a 5-year-old girl, who had a little backpack on. Sounding very flustered, Karen said she was sorry to have to ask this with no notice, but could I please watch her daughter for a few hours, because Karen had somewhere really important to be. Now, something you need to understand about me is that I have no idea how to deal with them. Like, I tense up and get super awkward if a kid so much as waves at me in the supermarket. I am also disabled. She uses a motorized wheelchair sometimes and a walking cane for short distances or when she's just pottering around her own home. I live with my boyfriend, who is also my carer. My chronic illnesses involve fainting spells and a lot of brain fog, so by my own account, I'm absolutely not someone who should be left in charge of a child. Karen has seen me using my wheelchair and my cane, and has seen my boyfriend, who was at work when this all happened, helping me in and out of the car. So I responded with a firm no, explaining that my medical conditions meant that her daughter would not be safe in my care and that I'm not well enough to have any guests in my home, anyway. Karen immediately flipped from pleading and simpering to hand-on-hip indignation, at this point, accusing me of faking my disabilities and threatened to report me to Centrelink if I didn't watch her daughter for her. Never mind the fact that I am not on welfare. My boyfriend has a high-paying job and I work somewhere between part-time and full-time hours from home most weeks. So I basically said, I'm not on Centrelink and I don't appreciate being blackmailed. Find another babysitter, because I am not IT. And closed my door. Karen kept banging on the door for a bit, but eventually left. About 20 minutes later, I heard a very faint, timid tapping on my front door. If I hadn't been so close to it, I probably wouldn't have heard it. I sighed heavily, having kinda already guessed what was happening. I opened the door and there was her daughter, who had clearly been crying, clutching the shoulder straps of her little backpack. She said, very softly, "Mummy said I could stay here today." Now, like I said, I cannot stand kids, but her daughter was an absolute darling throughout this entire fiasco and the most she ever did was cry, because her mother is clearly a goddamn monster. Karen had driven off and sent her daughter to my door, clearly thinking that if she left me with no alternative, I'd just play along and babysit her daughter for her, anyway, especially since I had literally no way of contacting Karen. Wrong. I escaped abusive parents at a young age and this made me furious. I got her daughter settled in front of the TV with a drink and some snacks, and called the police. Yeah, my neighbor just abandoned her 5-year-old daughter outside of her apartment and the kid showed up at my door, asking to come in. When the officers arrived, I told them the full story and while they were appalled, they weren't surprised. One said, "You'd be shocked at how not rare this kind of thing is." Which is honestly kind of the worst part of all this. The officers took her daughter with them and were really sweet with her, explaining to her that she wasn't in any trouble and had done the right thing, and that they were there to look after her and find out where her mummy had gone. I found out later that they were able to contact her daughter's father, who is currently working on finalizing a divorce from Karen and was also appalled, but not remotely surprised by what she'd done. Here's hoping he gets full custody of the poor kid after all this.